The projection screen still glowed with my findings when they all rose in unison. 12 executives stood at the exact same moment, chairs scraping back in a harsh chorus that felt rehearsed, their expressions unified in irritation and disdain. My voice cut off halfway through a sentence about the alarming frequency of quality failures I had documented across multiple facilities. "We're done listening to her shortcomings," Baxter, the COO, announced flatly. His tone carried the confidence of someone accustomed to shutting doors without consequence. "This presentation is a waste of valuable time." Designer suits shifted as tablets were tucked away and notebooks snapped shut. One by one, they prepared to leave. No one met my eyes. No one acknowledged that I was still standing there. The calculated indifference felt intentional, like a final lesson in power. "The data is very clear," I said, forcing the words out evenly. "Our customers are not satisfied, and our customers are perfectly satisfied," Vivian cut in smoothly. Her lips curved into a polite smile that never reached her eyes. "Perhaps you should reflect on whether you're suited for a role with this level of responsibility." They moved as a single unit toward the exit. The sound of Italian leather shoes against the polished floor echoed louder than it should have in the cavernous room. 12 executives, the full leadership team, walking out while I remained frozen at the front, hands still raised toward charts that outlined negligence so blatant it bordered on criminal. Monroe, the CFO, lingered behind. He stopped at the doorway, fingers brushing the light switch. "Don't bother finishing," he said without turning around. "No one will read your report." The lights snapped off. Darkness swallowed the room, broken only by the cold glow of the projector still illuminating my evidence. I stood there for 30 seconds, unmoving. My heart slowed, panic draining away and leaving behind something sharper, more deliberate. What they intended as humiliation hardened into certainty. This reaction wasn't a surprise. I had anticipated it, quietly hoped for it. Their public dismissal was confirmation, not defeat. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and scrolled to a contact I had saved weeks earlier, a name I'd prayed I wouldn't need. I pressed call. When she answered, I spoke 7 words that shifted everything. "They did exactly what you said they would." A pause. "All of them?" the voice asked. "Every single one," I replied, "and it's all recorded." Another brief silence. "Give me 4 hours." The line went dead. I lowered the phone and sat down slowly, eyes fixed on the data still glowing against the wall. The altered test results, the buried complaints, the safety failures hidden behind falsified approvals. Everything they never wanted exposed. Before we continue, thank you for joining me on this journey. If you're finding this story compelling so far, please hit that like button to help others discover it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. My name is Leona. Until 3 months ago, I was the Quality Assurance Director at one of the country's leading industrial equipment manufacturers. Our systems were installed in hospitals, schools, and government facilities nationwide, the kind of equipment people trusted with their safety without hesitation. I didn't start out as someone who made powerful enemies. I grew up in a small industrial town where honesty still meant something. My father spent 30 years at a factory that preached safety while quietly cutting corners. When it shut down after an accident that never should have happened, I learned what silence cost. From that point on, I promised myself I would never look the other way when lives were on the line. My career was built on precision and restraint. I fixed broken systems without destroying companies. I was known for solutions, not scandals. That reputation is exactly why they recruited me. "We need someone with your integrity," Baxter told me during my final interview. "Just a few inefficiencies, fresh eyes." My predecessor, Thomas, had left abruptly. Health reasons, they said. No one wanted to elaborate. When I asked for his documentation, I got vague answers about a proprietary system that hadn't transferred properly. The first real warning came during my facility tour. Nadia, as senior quality technician, walked me through the plant with stiff professionalism. Her answers felt rehearsed until we entered the testing lab. When I asked about validation protocols, her gaze flicked toward a small camera mounted in the corner. "We follow established company procedures," she said carefully. Within days, I uncovered test results that didn't align with production output. Equipment that failed safety thresholds had been approved and shipped. When I raised concerns internally, my team avoided eye contact, hands folded tight, fear hanging in the air. "Just follow established protocols," Baxter told me privately. "Your predecessor complicated things unnecessarily." The next morning, a bonus appeared in my account, far exceeding my contract. No explanation. I declined it and kept digging. Patterns emerged quickly. Our flagship medical line had defects serious enough to cause harm. Test procedures had been modified to hide failures. Customer complaints were rerouted and quietly erased. "This isn't a product issue," Vivin said when I presented my findings. "It's a perception issue." "Not when people can get hurt," I replied. She slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a revised contract, a massive raise, and a confidentiality clause that raised alarms immediately. "Regulatory flexibility benefits everyone. We take care of team players." I told her I'd think about it. Instead, I gathered evidence. That night, an anonymous email arrived containing original safety reports, unaltered. The message was short. Thomas wasn't sick. The morning of my executive presentation, Nadia stopped me in the parking garage. "They're setting you up," she whispered. "Baxter already has termination papers." "Why tell me?" I asked. "Because Thomas tried to do the right thing too." Before the meeting, I altered my presentation, removing the most damning slide and saving it for another audience. After the executives walked out, the call I made wasn't to a lawyer or a journalist. It was to Eliza, the lead investigator at the regulatory agency overseeing our industry. She had been quietly building a case long before I arrived. "I referenced Cincinnati on record," I told her. "Perfect. That's what we needed." 2 hours later, Vivin appeared in my office and fired me. She warned me my career was over. She told me no one would believe me. She was wrong. After she left, I opened my desk drawer and retrieved a small recording device that had been capturing every conversation in my office for 10 weeks. I slipped it into my pocket as my phone vibrated. "We're ahead of schedule. 4 agents arriving now. Meet in lobby in 10. I gathered my personal items just enough to appear compliant without drawing suspicion. As I walked through the department, my team watched with expressions ranging from pity to fear. Some knew what was coming. Others thought they were witnessing my final departure and disgrace. Nadia caught up with me near the elevator. "They're saying you tried to blame production for design flaws," she whispered. "Baxter's already announcing your replacement." "Are they now?" I pressed the down button. "Interesting timing. But will you do?" Her voice trembled slightly. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. "Sometimes," I said, stepping inside, "you have to let people believe they've won before they realized they've lost." The lobby was bustling with afternoon activity when the glass doors swung open. 4 individuals in dark suits entered, led by Eliza herself. Her badge was already visible as she approached the security desk. "Regulatory Enforcement Division," she announced, her voice carrying across the marble floor. "We have a warrant to access specific company records and conduct interviews." The security guard looked panicked, reaching for his phone. Within minutes, the lobby transformed into carefully controlled chaos. Employees stopped to watch. Phones came out. Someone from legal rushed down demanding to see paperwork. I stood near the reception desk observing as Eliza handed over documents and explained the situation with clinical precision. Her team dispersed toward the elevators, accompanied by visibly unsettled legal representatives. Baxter appeared, red-faced, hissing instructions to a junior attorney who looked increasingly alarmed. When Baxter spotted me, his expression shifted from anger to calculating suspicion. He strode over, positioning himself to block my view of the proceedings. "I hope you understand what you've done," he said quietly. "This little tantrum will destroy more than just your career." "That sounds concerning," I replied. "Maybe you should share those thoughts with the agents upstairs." His face tightened. "You signed confidentiality agreements." "Anything you shared was provided through proper regulatory channels," I finished for him. "Nothing outside standard reporting requirements." The color drained from his face as he processed the implication. I hadn't leaked anything to the press or competitors. I'd simply followed mandatory reporting protocols they'd been circumventing for years. "You have no idea what forces you're playing with," he said, his voice low. "This company has survived worse than one disgruntled employee." I smiled, holding his gaze. "I'm not disgruntled, Baxter. I'm doing exactly what you hired me to do, ensuring quality standards are met." Something in my expression unsettled him because he stepped back slightly. "Security will escort you out now." "Actually," said a voice behind him, "Ms. Leona will be staying to assist our investigation." Eliza stood there, her badge prominently displayed. "We have some questions about the presentation that was interrupted earlier today." The next 4 hours unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Agents moved through the building, securing servers and documentation. Executives were isolated for interviews. Employees watched wide-eyed as years of careful deception began unraveling in real time. I sat in a conference room, not the one from earlier, answering questions and offering context as Eliza's team assembled their case. Through the glass walls, I could see understanding slowly spreading across the office as whiteboards filled with timelines and connections. At 4:30, Monroe, our CFO, was escorted from his office, ashen-faced and silent. By 5:15, 8 more executives followed, not in handcuffs, but clearly no longer in control. As they passed the conference room where I sat with Eliza, Baxter locked eyes with me, the recognition flickering across his face, the realization that the woman they'd dismissed as incompetent had methodically dismantled their entire operation was almost worth the 3 months of anxiety and gaslighting. But this was only the beginning. What none of them knew yet was that by tomorrow morning, their carefully constructed house of cards would collapse completely, in ways none of them could possibly foresee. The evidence secured today was only one piece of a much larger puzzle, one that had been forming years before I ever arrived. The true scale of what was coming wouldn't be clear until the emergency board meeting scheduled for 8 a.m. By then, it would be too late for damage control, too late for lawyers, too late for anything except watching their perfectly built world burn to ashes. And I would be there to witness every moment. The next morning arrived with the surreal brightness that follows life-altering events. I dressed with precision, charcoal gray suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back severely. Today wasn't about making an impression, it was about watching accountability unfold. Sleep had evaded me, but adrenaline provided razor-sharp clarity. 3 months of careful documentation, strategic alliances, and deliberate patience were about to culminate in this emergency board meeting. The company headquarters looked different in the early morning light, vulnerable somehow. Security had increased, unfamiliar guards checking IDs at every entrance. News vans waited at the edge of the property, held back by temporary barriers. Ms. Leona, a woman I didn't recognize, greeted me at the executive entrance. "I'm Zoe, assistant to the board chair. You're expected upstairs." The executive floor was eerily quiet. Glass offices that normally buzzed with activity stood empty, their occupants conspicuously absent. Computer screens displayed login pages that would never again welcome their usual users. Zoe led me to a side room adjacent to the main boardroom. Through a partially open door, I could see people gathering, somber faces, urgent whispers, Water glasses, no one touched. Wait here, Zoe instructed. The chair will call you in when they are ready. Alone, I checked my phone. A message from Eliza. Second phase proceeding now. 9 search warrants being executed simultaneously. I smiled. Perfect timing. From the boardroom, voices grew louder. Someone demanded answers. Another insisted on legal representation. A third voice, firm and authoritative, cut through the chaos. "This meeting will come to order," announced Edmund, the board chair. "We face unprecedented allegations that require immediate action." The door swung open. Edmund, a silver-haired man with calculating eyes, nodded at me. "Please join us, Ms. Leona." The boardroom held 23 people, the full 12-member board, several senior executives who hadn't been at my presentation the day before, and a cluster of grave-faced attorneys. The 3 empty chairs at the table were impossible to ignore. For those who haven't met her, this is Leona, our Quality Assurance Director, or rather, our former director, according to termination papers that were apparently filed yesterday afternoon. Papers I never approved. Murmurs rippled through the room as Edmund continued. "Leona has agreed to present her findings directly to this board before speaking with federal investigators."
Baxter, seated rigidly near the far end, interrupted. "This is highly irregular. Our attorneys should review any materials before—" "You forfeited that privilege," Edmund cut in sharply. "The regulators have already seized most company records. We're trying to understand what's happening before the markets open and this company loses half its value." He nodded toward me. "The floor is yours." I connected my tablet to the presentation system. The room darkened and the screens lit up with the same slides I'd begun showing yesterday. As I started explaining yesterday before the executive team departed, I began, my voice steady. "Our quality assurance protocols have been systematically compromised for approximately 36 months. For the next 40 minutes, I laid out everything I'd uncovered with methodical precision. Altered test results, suppressed incident reports, modified safety parameters. I presented communications proving deliberate concealment of equipment failures, including 3 that had resulted in patient injuries at hospitals. The board members' expressions shifted from skepticism to shock to barely restrained fury. "This can't be accurate," Vivian insisted when I paused. "These are isolated incidents presented without context." "Actually," I replied, "I haven't even shown you the most concerning evidence." I advanced to a new set of slides no one had seen before. They revealed financial records showing patterns of suspicious payments to offshore accounts following regulatory inspections, tracing diagrams linking executive bonuses to falsified quality metrics, email chains discussing containment strategies for potential whistleblowers. "Where did you get these?" Monroe demanded, his voice. "From your predecessor, Tomas," I replied calmly. "Before he was forced out, he created secured backups of everything. He anticipated being silenced, just not how thoroughly you would do it." I turned back to the board. Tomas didn't leave because of health issues. He left because he was given a choice: sign a settlement with a gag order or face manufactured fraud charges. His final act was encrypting these files, with instructions that they be sent to specific people if he didn't reset a digital timer every month. "That would be theft of company property," one attorney interjected. Edmund raised his hand for silence. "Continue, please." "When I was hired, I received an anonymous message with access information to these files. At first, I thought it might be a trap, but as my own investigation confirmed the same patterns Tomas had documented, I recognized the truth. I advanced to the next slide. Video footage from my presentation the previous day appeared, capturing the moment the executive team walked out, including their disparaging remarks. The crystal-clear audio dropped a painful silence over the room. "You recorded that illegally," Baxter snapped. "Actually," I countered, All meeting rooms in this building have automatic recording capabilities for archival purposes, as stated in the company policy manual, section 4.3. I simply requested access to those archives this morning, which Edmund approved. Edmund's expression gave nothing away, but the slight nod he offered spoke volumes. He'd been meticulous in following proper channels, leaving the company no technical violations to exploit. This morning, I continued, federal agents are executing search warrants at 9 executives' homes. They're specifically looking for communications about the Cincinnati incident from last year, the one where equipment failure in an operating room was blamed on user error, despite internal documentation proving otherwise. The color drained from several faces around the table. "How do you know about Cincinnati?" Monroe whispered. I tilted my head slightly. "Because I was hired to uncover exactly these kinds of issues. The fact that you tried to stop me from doing my job doesn't mean I ever stopped doing it." For the next hour, the meeting dissolved into crisis management. External counsel was summoned, press statements were drafted, market analysts were contacted. Through it all, I sat quietly, watching their world collapse in slow motion. By noon, trading of company stock had been temporarily suspended. By 2, 9 resignation letters had been submitted. By 4, federal prosecutors announced preliminary charges against 7 executives, with more expected. As the day wound down, Edmund asked me to stay behind after the others had left. "You've been planning this for months," he said once we were alone. It wasn't a question. "From the 3rd week of my employment," I confirmed. Once I understood what was happening, I had 2 choices: become complicit or bring it all down. "You could have come to me directly." I studied him carefully. Could I have? 3 board members were aware of these issues, Edmund. Their signatures appear on approval documents for the modified testing protocols. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. Not all of us knew the extent. Ignorance by choice is still a choice. He nodded slowly, accepting the rebuke. "What happens now?" "That depends on you. The company can survive this, but not with the same leadership structure, not with the same priorities." "And where do you fit in that future?" I smiled. "I don't. My resignation will be on your desk tomorrow. My work here is finished." The next morning, I watched from my apartment as news channels displayed footage of executives being escorted from their homes. The company's stock had dropped 42% at opening. Class action lawsuits were being assembled. Industry analysts predicted a complete leadership overhaul. What none of them knew, what no one except Tomas, Eliza, and I understood, was that this had never been about revenge for my humiliation. It had been justice for the patients harmed by faulty equipment, for the employees threatened into silence, for the systematic corruption that valued profit over safety. The revenge hadn't been the public downfall or criminal charges. Satisfying as they were, the true revenge was in that moment when 12 powerful people had simultaneously revealed their character by walking out, believing their unified front made them invincible, never suspecting their synchronized abandonment was the final piece of evidence we needed. They thought they were demonstrating power. Instead, they were sealing their fate. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Leona?" an unfamiliar voice asked. "It is. This is Dr. Harrington at Memorial Hospital. We've been following the news about your former company. Our medical safety board would like to discuss a potential consulting position, helping hospitals identify compromised equipment. Would you be interested?" I smiled. "Very much so. Sometimes the best revenge isn't watching your enemies fall, it's using their destruction to build something better on the ruins they left behind." If you've made it to the end of this journey with me, I can't thank you enough for listening. The courage to stand up against powerful forces often comes from knowing others understand your story. Please consider hitting that like button if this resonated with you, and subscribe for more true accounts of corporate justice. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences. There's strength in our shared stories.